these councils. Can you talk to me about what you did? Was there even an application process? How did these people in the councils get selected?
You should talk to the Lieutenant Governor if you're interested to find out what he was referring to. But the councils basically make up a diverse group of economic interests in that region, right? When you listen to what we're trying to do, a regional economic development plan that is comprehensive and sustainable. So the people who are on the council represent just that. Regional interests, business interests, labor interests that are essential to putting together a comprehensive plan.
Governor, how do you have a Capital Region Economic Development Council without Neil Golub on it?
I don't know.
There's been some concerns in other parts of the states that maybe some parts of the states that are hurting more, like Western New York, should get more of the money than other parts of the states that are doing better. How do you resolve that?
Well, one of the principles here is we want plans that work. This is taxpayers' money, and it is an investment in the state. And we want the money that we invest to reap dividends, and we want plans that actually produce jobs and keep people here. So rather than saying, we're going to give money to every plan, come up with a plan, whatever the plan is, we're going to give you government money. That's the old way. We say we will fund the best plans, and it's a competition. And if the competition makes you work a little harder and gets your energy up and you come up with a better plan, great. Competition also means we fund those plans that have the highest likelihood of success, and we don't waste taxpayers' dollars by funding plans that don't work. The federal government moved towards competitions 20 years ago. In my opinion, the state is far behind in this regard. We have this mentality of just give people a check, just give them the money, whatever happens, happens. No results, no performance measures, and you've been wasting taxpayers' money for a lot of years. I think the federal model, the competitive model, works much better. I've worked with that model for 8 years when I was in Washington. I've done just this all across the nation. And some communities, frankly, come up with good plans. And some communities, frankly, don't come up with good plans. And the communities that don't come up with good plans, it would be a waste to fund them.
Governor, there's a lot of small businesses are complaining about...
Excuse me one second. Sure. This is not easy, what we're asking communities to do here. You know, we can say regional collaboration. It sounds very simple, regional collaboration. It's very, very hard to do. You know, it'd be like me saying to all you guys, cooperate and come up with one story today. You know, yeah, I get the concept. Very, very hard to do. So not all of the plans are going to be stellar. I mean, they may be, but by a probability, you know, there are going to be some plans that are better than others. And you want to fund the better plans, and you want to drive communities to come up with better plans. I'm sorry, Nick.
Governor, a lot of businesses are complaining about a charge, $21 per employee charge for unemployment insurance back to the federal government. Is there something that can be changed on this, and just what's the issue there?
Yeah, we would need the federal government to waive the cost. I'm advocating that they do it. Up until now, they haven't. They have in past years, but they haven't for this year. And that's why the cost is being passed on. In terms of other avenues to pay, as has been suggested, the state is not in a position to pay. It's approximately $100 million. And we're not in a position to pay that. You know, some people will say, well, there's a forecast by the controller that the state has $800 million more in collections so far this year. Remember, this state, when we closed the budget, we had roughly a $2.5 billion deficit for next year. So we are not out of the woods in this state. You know what I'm referring to. When we resolved our budget this year, we were forecasting a $2.5 billion budget deficit for next year. So we have a lot of work to do, and we certainly don't have extra money at this time.
Governor,
Well,
only
one
giving
more,
these,
guys.
these councils 90 days to come up with, you want a comprehensive plan. Do you think that's long enough for them to come up with the plans you'd like to see?
You know, if you can't do it in 90 days, you probably can't do it. You won't have a perfect plan, but it's all relative, right? You're going to be competing against other communities that had 90 days too. It's not like some people have been working on it for 6 months and you only had 90 days. So do I think they can come up, those that can come up with it will be able to get a good start in 90 days? Sure.
Governor,
By the way, this is an ongoing process, you know. I did this in Washington for 8 years. This is something that is evolutionary, it's incremental. You start with a plan, you refine it, it grows, the cooperation gets better, so it gets better as it goes along.
And will this be a year by year thing? This isn't just a one-time thing.
I would like to see it continue. It'd be subject to funding next year, obviously, in the economic circumstances of the state and what the legislature chooses to do and not do.
Governor, you made a
Global
point of
Foundries wants
singling
it.
out Roy McDonald during the opening remarks. Was that because of his vote on same-sex marriage, and does that really help him in his district?
It's the truth. I don't know if it helps him or if it hurts him, but it's the truth.
What's it about?
What I said was that he and I have had, we don't agree on every issue, and we don't agree on every issue. But frankly, we're not supposed to agree on every issue. But I believe he is a man of integrity and a man of courage and a man of principle. And in my opinion, that is more important than the specific agreement or disagreements.
Thanks, Governor.
Governor, how would you address
question,
Global
but-
Foundries? They want $1 billion to build a second chip fab in Saratoga County. Would they have to go outside this economic development process?
You know, a lot of companies want a lot of money to do a lot of good things, and we're trying to balance the needs and allocate the scarce resources we have where they will get the taxpayers the maximum benefit, right? And that's, remember the backdrop on all of this. You just heard that question. Companies want money, and if you give them $1 billion, they'll expand. First, you need $1 billion to do that, right? And that kind of request we get 10 times a day all across the state. So this money is very, very scarce and precious. And that's why we want to fund the best plans. That's why the competition. That's why if it's a worthwhile investment, fine. But we want to make sure, we just worked very hard to balance the state budget. Every dollar is precious, and we want to get the most return and benefit for every tax dollar.
Just a question on federal debt reform, the possibility of that happening. Would it hurt New York? The state controllers issued some warnings about that. Do you agree
Depends
with
what
that?
it is. I don't believe it's going to happen. I believe they will get through this period, and there will be an agreement, and that will resolve the matter. But if not, it would depend on what it was, when, how.
Governor, who do you
Is there
blame
any
for the
chance-
stalemate right now in Washington?
I don't blame. I'm not about blame. I blame the press, Glenn.
Will the state make any
I don't
preparations?
blame. I think, and I believe it's going to work out. You have very different positions. You have different ideological positions. You have different positions within the houses. You know, this is not just the president's position and the Congress's position. You have a variety of positions within the Congress. So it's very complicated. I believe it will be worked out when it has to be worked out because the deadline forces resolution. And I believe that's what's going to happen.
Governor, if you could expand a little bit on the comptroller's revenue forecast that you mentioned earlier, do you have any reason to doubt that $800 million number is accurate?
Nick, my point is different. We have a $2.5 billion deficit when we ended last year, right? So to the extent, I thought you were suggesting people say we have extra money. We need $2.5 billion to get to zero, right? And we don't have the $2.5 billion yet. Right now, when we start next year, we start in a hole again. Not as deep as the hole we were in. When I came in, we had a $10 billion deficit, right? But a $2.5 billion hole that we have to fill before we get back to zero.
Governor, any chance one of the regions will get shut out if they're in this competition if their plan isn't good enough?
I mean, we had, when I was on the federal side, we would have hundreds of applications for maybe 20 selections. Maybe 20 selections. Obviously, the odds are different here, but do I believe there can be plans that lose? Sure,
Completely.
sure.
Governor, on the unemployment.
But by the way, that's the way it should be, right? Because if there's competition, then there are going to be better plans and plans that are not as good, and plans that win and plans that lose. As I said, it's an ongoing process, and my prior experience on the federal side, you had communities that lost 1 round, 2 rounds, 3 rounds, but they learned and they saw what they were doing and what the communities were doing that won, and they refined their approach, and then they came back and they won. But, so the competition works, because again, what we're asking them to do is hard, and I believe without the competition, the communities would not be as successful at transcending these barriers. Because we say it tritely, cities and counties all have to work together. That is very, very hard to do. Well, if you don't do it, you're gonna lose. Well, maybe you got it a little easier.
Guys, thank you very much.
Thanks very much, thank you.